You left your own mother here, like she was luggage. The old woman looked down at her trembling hands as buses roared past the cracked sidewalk. A single paper shopping bag rested beside her. Her daughter never looked back. But someone else did. From the tinted window of a black SUV across the street, a man in an expensive navy suit had seen everything. And by the end of that week, one life would be destroyed, while another would be changed forever. Margaret Ellis was 74 years old. She wasn't loud. She didn't complain. She had spent 40 years working as a school librarian in Cedar Falls, Iowa, helping children discover worlds hidden inside books. After retiring, she lived quietly in the small house she had shared with her late husband, Daniel. When Daniel died from a heart attack 3 years earlier, the silence became unbearable. Then came the phone call. "Mom," her daughter Jennifer said sweetly. "Why don't you move closer to me in Chicago? The grandkids miss you." Margaret cried with happiness. She believed she still had a family. She sold her little home. Packed only what mattered. Old photographs. Daniel's wedding ring. Her favorite Bible. A quilt she had sewn by hand. Everything else was donated to neighbors. She arrived in Chicago believing she was beginning the happiest chapter of her life. Instead, it became the worst week she'd ever lived. Jennifer wasn't cruel at first. Just distant. Every conversation felt rushed. Every meal felt uncomfortable. Her grandchildren barely looked up from their phones. Her son-in-law, Kevin, treated her like an unwanted guest. "You know," Kevin whispered one evening after dinner, "this apartment isn't exactly built for another person." Margaret pretended not to hear. She washed every dish. Folded every towel. Cooked breakfast every morning. She tried desperately not to become a burden. Then Jennifer's attitude changed completely. Bills. Arguments. Stress at work. Everything somehow became Margaret's fault. "You don't understand how expensive life is now. You leave lights on. You take too much space. You need more attention than I expected." Margaret apologized every single time. "I'm sorry, sweetheart." The words became automatic. Jennifer stopped calling her mom. She started calling her Margaret. Every time she heard it, something inside her broke. 5 days later Jennifer smiled again. A strange smile. "Mom, let's take a little trip." Margaret's eyes lit up. "Oh? Where are we going?" "I found a wonderful senior community. You'll love it." Margaret believed her. Why wouldn't she? Jennifer was her daughter. They drove nearly 40 minutes through the city before pulling beside an old downtown bus terminal. Margaret looked around. "This doesn't look like a retirement community." Jennifer forced another smile. "It isn't exactly here." She opened the trunk. Pulled out Margaret's small suitcase. Handed her $20. Then pointed toward a bench. "Just wait here." Margaret blinked. "For who?" Jennifer avoided her eyes. "A shuttle." "When does it come?" "Soon." Jennifer climbed back into the driver's seat. "Jennifer?" No answer. The engine started. "Jennifer." The car rolled away. "Jennifer." Margaret struggled to stand, waving both hands. Her voice disappeared beneath the sound of buses. The silver SUV vanished into traffic. She kept waiting. 5 minutes. 20 minutes. 1 hour. The shuttle never came. Instead, rain began to fall. People hurried past without making eye contact. A teenager laughed. Someone muttered, "Poor lady." Margaret sat back down. She clutched Daniel's wedding ring so tightly it left marks in her palm. She still refused to believe what had happened. "My daughter's coming back," she whispered. She has to. Across the street, inside the black SUV, Michael Carter hadn't moved. Michael wasn't simply another businessman. He was the founder and CEO of Carter Hospitality Group, one of the fastest-growing luxury hotel companies in the Midwest. But no one watching him that afternoon would have guessed it. He wasn't thinking about contracts. Or investors. Or tomorrow's board meeting. He was staring at the elderly woman sitting alone in the rain. His driver spoke quietly. "Sir, should we go?" Michael didn't answer. Because 26 years earlier, he had watched someone abandon his own mother almost the exact same way. And he had never forgotten it. He slowly opened the SUV door. The rain soaked his polished shoes as he crossed the street. Margaret quickly wiped away her tears, embarrassed that a stranger had noticed. Michael stopped a few feet away. "Ma'am." She forced a small smile. "I'm all right." He looked at the untouched suitcase. The $20 bill still folded in her shaking hand. Then at the empty road where the car had disappeared. "No," he said gently. "I don't think you are." Margaret lowered her eyes. For a moment, she almost repeated the same lie. "I'm just waiting for my daughter." Michael glanced at the empty street. "How long have you been waiting?" She looked at the old clock above the bus terminal. I think almost 2 hours. And she hasn't answered her phone?" Margaret slowly pulled an old flip phone from her purse. She pressed Jennifer's number. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. A third time. The call ended before it even rang. Michael didn't need another explanation. He had seen enough. "My name is Michael Carter." She nodded politely, not recognizing the name. "I'm Margaret. It's starting to rain harder. Would you let me buy you a cup of coffee?" Margaret hesitated. Her parents had always taught her not to trust strangers. But there was something about the man's voice. He wasn't trying to rescue her. He was trying to protect her dignity. "I don't want to be any trouble." Michael smiled softly. "My mother used to say the same thing." That sentence broke something inside Margaret. She quietly whispered. "She raised you well." Michael looked away for a second. "I hope she did." Minutes later they were sitting inside a small family diner across from the station. The waitress placed a bowl of hot chicken soup in front of Margaret. "I only ordered coffee." Michael nodded toward the waitress. "I know." The waitress smiled. "It's on the house." Margaret stared at the steam rising from the bowl. She hadn't realized how hungry she was. As she lifted the spoon, her hands shook so badly that some of the soup spilled. Without saying a word, Michael slid a napkin closer. Not because she needed help. Because he wanted her to feel respected. After several quiet minutes, he finally asked, "What happened?" Margaret looked through the rain-covered window. "I think..." Her voice cracked. "I think my daughter left me." Those words were harder to say than she expected. She covered her mouth. Then the tears came. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just years of love breaking apart. Michael listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't judge. He simply listened. Margaret told him everything. Selling her home. Moving to Chicago. Trying not to become a burden. The cold dinners. The whispered complaints. The drive to the bus station. The fake shuttle. The $20. Every painful detail. When she finished, silence filled the booth. Michael looked down at his untouched coffee. Then quietly said, "My mother died believing I would come back for her." Margaret looked up. "What do you mean?" Michael took a slow breath. "When I was 16, my father threw her out after she became sick. I wanted to stay with her, but I was still a kid. I had nowhere to take her. His voice became almost a whisper. I promised I'd come back after finding work. He swallowed hard. But before I could. He couldn't finish. Margaret gently placed her hand over his. I'm sorry. Michael nodded. I became successful. He smiled sadly. But success came too late for the one person I wanted to save. Margaret squeezed his hand. She would still be proud of you. For the first time that day, Michael felt like someone had forgiven him. Across town, Jennifer was sitting inside a modern downtown office building. She worked as Regional Operations Director for Carter Hospitality Group. It was the biggest opportunity of her career. A promotion to Vice President was only days away. Her co-workers admired her confidence. Her manager praised her leadership. Everyone believed Jennifer represented the company's values. Professional. Compassionate. Responsible. She believed it too. At lunch, her friend Ashley smiled. So, how's life with your mom? Jennifer rolled her eyes. Oh, don't even ask. Ashley laughed. Still driving you crazy? Jennifer shrugged. I handled it. What does that mean? Jennifer stirred her coffee. I found another solution. Ashley looked confused. What kind of solution? Jennifer changed the subject. Neither woman noticed the television hanging above the restaurant counter. A local news segment had just begun. The headline read, Community volunteers helping homeless seniors. For a split second, the camera showed the downtown bus terminal. Jennifer barely looked up. She had no idea that somewhere inside that same neighborhood, her biggest secret was already beginning to unravel. Back at the diner, Michael excused himself for a moment and stepped outside. He called his executive assistant. Claire. Yes, Mr. Carter? I need you to cancel my afternoon meetings. You have the executive leadership review in 1 hour. It can wait. There was a pause. Is everything all right? No. His tone became firm. I also need human resources to send me the personnel file for Regional Operations Director Jennifer Brooks. Claire sounded surprised. Jennifer Brooks? She's one of our strongest directors. I know. And, why do you need her file? Michael looked through the diner's window at Margaret, who was carefully folding her late husband's ring into a handkerchief. Then he quietly answered. Because I just met her mother. Claire fell completely silent. Michael ended the call. He wasn't angry. Not yet. He wanted the truth. Every piece of it. Because one thing bothered him more than anything else. Margaret had defended Jennifer the entire afternoon. Maybe she's under pressure. Maybe she didn't mean it. Maybe something happened. Even after being abandoned. A mother's heart was still protecting her child. Michael looked toward the cloudy sky. His own mother had once done exactly the same for him. He made himself one promise. If Jennifer had truly chosen ambition over compassion, no title in his company would be high enough to protect her. And by tomorrow morning, she would learn that actions committed in private sometimes have the most public consequences. The next morning, Jennifer walked into Carter Hospitality Group's downtown headquarters wearing her best navy suit. Today felt different. She was certain the promotion was finally hers. Co-workers smiled as she passed. Good luck today. You've earned it. Can't wait to call you vice president. Jennifer accepted every compliment with a confident smile. She believed years of hard work had brought her here. She never imagined that her entire future had already changed before she stepped through the front door. Upstairs, Michael stood alone in his office, staring out at the Chicago skyline. Claire entered quietly. You asked for everything we could find. She placed a folder on his desk. Jennifer Brooks. 7 years with the company. Outstanding performance reviews. Excellent financial results. Strong leadership scores. Michael nodded. And? Claire hesitated. We also verified what Mrs. Ellis told you. Michael looked up. The house in Cedar Falls was sold 3 weeks ago. The money was transferred into a joint account Jennifer had access to. 2 days later, most of it was withdrawn. Michael's jaw tightened. What about the retirement community Jennifer mentioned? Claire slowly shook her head. There isn't one. Silence filled the room. Michael closed the folder. It happened exactly the way Margaret described. At that same moment, Margaret was waking up in one of Carter Grand Hotel's quiet guest suites. The night before, Michael had insisted she stay there until they figured out what to do. She had refused at first. I can't afford this. Michael smiled. You already have. She looked confused. My company owns the hotel. Only then had she realized the stranger who bought her soup wasn't just kind. He was incredibly successful. Yet nothing about him had made her feel small. That morning, a hotel employee knocked gently on her door. Mrs. Ellis? Yes? We brought you some breakfast. Margaret opened the door and froze. Fresh fruit. Pancakes. Coffee. Orange juice. Flowers. A handwritten note rested beside the tray. It read, No one deserves to eat alone after spending a lifetime feeding others with kindness. She smiled through tears. No expensive gift had ever touched her heart the way those words did. Meanwhile, Jennifer entered the executive conference room. The promotion meeting was already beginning. Senior executives sat around the polished table. Michael Carter entered last. Everyone stood. Jennifer noticed he looked unusually serious. She had met him only twice before. He rarely attended these meetings personally. Please, Michael said. Have a seat. The room became silent. Michael looked around the table. Before we discuss promotions, I'd like to talk about leadership. Jennifer smiled confidently. This sounded like one of his famous speeches. Michael continued. Leadership isn't measured by profits. Everyone listened carefully. It isn't measured by efficiency. Jennifer nodded. It isn't measured by titles. Michael paused. It's measured by how you treat people who have nothing left to offer you. Jennifer's smile faded just a little. Michael slowly walked around the room. You can train someone to manage hotels. You can teach negotiation. You can improve communication. But character. He stopped. Cannot be taught after it's abandoned. Jennifer suddenly felt uneasy. Michael looked directly into her eyes. Ms. Brooks. Yes, sir? I have a simple question. She straightened in her chair. When was the last time you saw your mother? Jennifer's heart skipped. She forced a smile. Yesterday morning. And how is she? Jennifer answered without thinking. She's settling into a wonderful senior living community. Michael didn't blink. Really? Yes. What is the name of the community? Jennifer hesitated. It's new. The name? She searched desperately for an answer. I don't remember the exact name. Michael opened the folder. Interesting. The room felt colder. Because our investigators couldn't find any retirement community that admitted Margaret Ellis yesterday. Jennifer's face turned pale. Several executives exchanged confused looks. Michael continued calmly. They did, however, find security cameras. Jennifer's breathing became shallow. They also found witnesses. Her hands began to shake beneath the table. And they found an elderly woman sitting alone at a downtown bus station. After being told to wait for a shuttle that never existed. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Michael's next sentence landed like thunder. I know this because... He looked directly at her. I was the witness. Jennifer completely froze. The conference room became so quiet that the air conditioner was the only sound anyone could hear. I watched you drive away. Her eyes filled with panic. Sir. Michael raised one hand. I'm not finished. He placed a photograph on the conference table. It showed Margaret sitting on the rain-soaked bench with her suitcase. Jennifer stared at the picture. She couldn't deny it. Michael spoke softly. Do you know what your mother said after waiting for hours? Jennifer couldn't answer. She defended you. He shook his head. She believed you must have been under stress. She blamed herself. His voice cracked with disappointment. Even after what you did. She still loved you. Jennifer lowered her head. For the first time in years, she felt ashamed. But the hardest moment was still waiting outside the conference room door. The conference room door opened. Jennifer slowly looked up. Her heart stopped. Margaret stood quietly in the doorway. She wore the same light blue sweater she had been wearing at the bus station. Her suitcase rested beside her. She looked tired. But she stood with a quiet dignity that filled the room. Every executive turned toward her. Jennifer could barely breathe. Mom! The word slipped out before she could stop it. Margaret looked at her with sad, gentle eyes. It had been days since Jennifer had called her that. No anger. No shouting. Just silence. The kind of silence that makes people hear their own conscience. Jennifer pushed back her chair. I can explain. Margaret softly shook her head. No, sweetheart. Her voice was calm. I think you've been explaining your choices to yourself for a long time. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. Then how was it supposed to happen? Margaret asked. Jennifer opened her mouth. But no words came. Michael remained silent. This wasn't his conversation. This belonged to a mother and a daughter. Jennifer finally whispered. I was overwhelmed. My job. The bills. The pressure. I didn't know what to do. Margaret nodded slowly. I know life became difficult. I saw how tired you were. I heard you crying after everyone went to bed. Jennifer looked up in surprise. You knew? I knew. Then why didn't you say anything? Margaret smiled sadly. Because mothers spend their whole lives trying to make their children's burdens lighter. A tear rolled down Jennifer's cheek. I never wanted to hurt you. Margaret's voice trembled. But you did. Those 3 words hit harder than any scream ever could. Jennifer collapsed into her chair. I was afraid. Afraid of what? Margaret asked. That my life would never be mine again. I thought. She wiped away her tears. I thought taking care of you meant giving up everything I'd worked for. Margaret slowly walked closer. When you were 6 years old, you had pneumonia. Jennifer looked confused. You stopped breathing twice. The doctors told me I should prepare for the worst. The room became completely still. I slept beside your hospital bed for 11 nights. I lost my job. I couldn't pay the mortgage. I sold my wedding jewelry. She smiled through tears. And I would have done it 1,000 more times. Jennifer covered her face. I never told you. Because that's what parents do. They love. They sacrifice. They don't keep score. Jennifer sobbed openly now. I'm so sorry. Margaret gently touched her daughter's shoulder. I didn't need a perfect daughter. I just hoped I had raised a compassionate one. Those words broke Jennifer completely. Across the room, several executives quietly wiped away tears. Even Claire looked down at the table. Michael took a slow breath. He had seen difficult business meetings, hostile takeovers, lawsuits, bankruptcies. None of them compared to watching a family fall apart. After several moments, Jennifer stood. She faced everyone. Then she faced Michael. I lied. Her voice shook. I abandoned my mother. I told myself I had no choice. But I did. I chose myself. She swallowed hard. And that's something I'll regret for the rest of my life. Michael nodded once. Thank you for telling the truth. Jennifer took a deep breath. I know I'm about to lose my job. Michael didn't answer immediately. Instead, he asked one question. If no one had seen what happened. Jennifer closed her eyes. I probably never would have admitted it. Michael looked around the room. That's exactly why this matters. He addressed every executive present. We trust our leaders with thousands of employees. With guests. With families. If someone can justify abandoning the person who sacrificed everything for them. He paused. What else can they justify when nobody is watching? No one had an answer. Michael turned back to Jennifer. As CEO, I have to protect the culture of this company. Jennifer nodded. I understand. Effective immediately. He took a slow breath. You are removed from your position as Regional Operations Director. Jennifer lowered her head. And your promotion is permanently withdrawn. She quietly whispered. I deserve that. Michael continued. This decision isn't about punishment. It's about trust. Trust, once broken, must be earned again. Jennifer picked up her purse. She looked at Margaret one last time. I don't expect you to forgive me. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. I can't pretend today never happened. But forgiveness. She placed her hand over her heart. Is a journey. It begins when someone truly changes. Jennifer nodded silently. Then she walked toward the door. Just before leaving, she stopped. Without turning around, she said, I hope one day I become the daughter you deserved. The door closed behind her. The room remained silent. But outside that room, Jennifer's hardest journey had only just begun. 3 months passed after that day. And for Jennifer Brooks, life looked completely different. The title was gone. The corner office was gone. The expensive dinners with executives were gone. For the first time in years, Jennifer had nothing to hide behind. No position. No reputation. No perfect image. Just herself. At first, she struggled. She moved into a small apartment on the north side of Chicago. She sold the luxury car she could no longer afford. She stopped buying things to impress people who never truly knew her. And every morning, she woke up with the same painful memory. A bus station. A suitcase. Her mother standing alone in the rain. The moment she wished she could erase. But she learned something important. You cannot change the past. You can only decide what kind of person you become after it. Jennifer started visiting Margaret every weekend. At first, Margaret kept their conversations short. Coffee. A small walk. A simple meal. No pretending. No excuses. Jennifer understood. Trust was not rebuilt with one apology. It was rebuilt with hundreds of small actions. One Saturday morning, Margaret found Jennifer fixing the broken fence in her backyard. "You don't have to do that." Jennifer looked up and smiled. "I know." "Then why are you?" Jennifer placed the hammer down. "Because for years, I only came to you when I needed something." She looked around the old house. "I want to finally be someone who gives something back." Margaret watched her quietly. Then she smiled. A small smile. But it was the first real smile she had given her daughter in months. "You always hated yard work." Jennifer laughed softly. "I hated a lot of things." She looked at her mother. "Mostly because I didn't understand what mattered." Meanwhile, Michael Carter made a decision that surprised everyone at his company. He created a new employee program called the Human First Initiative. It focused on helping employees balance careers, aging parents, family responsibilities, and personal struggles. During the announcement, Michael stood in front of hundreds of employees. Companies often measure success by numbers: revenue, growth, market share. He paused. But behind every number is a person. A mother. A father. A child. A human being. The program became one of the most successful projects the company had ever launched. But Michael never considered it a business achievement. To him, it was a promise. A promise to the mother he couldn't save. 1 year later, Margaret was invited to speak at a community event hosted by Carter Hospitality Group. She stood on stage in front of hundreds of people. The same woman who had once sat forgotten at a bus stop. The same woman who believed she had become a burden. Now people were standing to applaud her. Michael introduced her. "There are people who build companies. There are people who build communities. And there are rare people who build hearts. Margaret Ellis is one of those people." Margaret smiled. She looked older. But happier. When she reached the microphone, she didn't talk about what happened to her. She didn't mention Jennifer's mistake. Instead, she said something nobody expected. "The greatest pain in life is not always caused by strangers. Sometimes it's caused by the people we love the most." The audience became silent. "But the greatest healing can also come from love." She looked toward the crowd. "We all make mistakes. Some mistakes hurt others. Some mistakes change us forever. But a person's worst moment does not have to become their final chapter." In the front row, Jennifer wiped away tears. She knew those words were meant for everyone. Including her. After the event, Jennifer approached her mother. "I have something for you." She handed Margaret a small wooden box. Inside was Daniel's old wedding ring. Margaret froze. "My ring." Jennifer nodded. "When we sold the house, I found it in a drawer. I kept it because I knew it meant everything to you. I should have given it back sooner." Margaret held the ring tightly. Then she looked at her daughter. "You kept something precious." Jennifer nodded. "I did." Margaret smiled gently. "So did I." Jennifer looked confused. "What?" "Hope." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Margaret opened her arms. And Jennifer finally cried the way she hadn't allowed herself to cry in years. Not from guilt. Not from fear. From healing. Years later, people would still talk about the woman who was abandoned at a bus stop. But the story was no longer about what Jennifer did wrong. It was about what happened afterward. A mother who showed that love can survive unimaginable pain. A daughter who learned that success means nothing if you lose your humanity. And a stranger who proved that sometimes the person who notices your suffering can become the reason you survive it. Because in the end, a person's true character is not revealed by how they treat those who can help them. It is revealed by how they treat those who cannot give them anything back. And sometimes, The smallest act of kindness from one person can change the entire direction of another person's life.